Hey guys, happy Monday. I hope everybody had a good weekend. I did. Um, got to hang out with my mom a little bit. Got to check out her place. It's really cool. Got some game time in with my friends, hanging out online, so that was cool too. But of course, life happens. Late last night, my server went down. All my services went offline, and I ended up working until the wee hours of the morning, trying to get everything back up and running. They are. It made for a hectic Monday, but like I said, such is life. I was able to catch up on everything. Um, Today, I want to talk about part two of the talk on AI that we started last week. Um, Part one, I was talking about my framework and my philosophy, and I mentioned that there were two things that I needed to cover. Part one was talking about how AI doesn't replace jobs, it replaces tasks. And I left some pointers for anybody who is in a job that is largely task oriented, because automation will eventually replace that anyway. That's what automation does, AI or not. I didn't post the resources that I wanted to. Like I said, I kind of took the weekend off, hung out with my mom, hung out with family and friends. But it will be up this week. I promise you that, on dexternelson.com. That said, I want to talk today about what I kind of lined up last week, which is we are on the verge of this collective shift in the evolution of human civilization. Now, it's sort of anthropological, so just bear with me. Um, and I'm actually looking at my notes here to make sure I stay on track. The point I want to make is that humans, we've always operated, survival first, before culture, before economics, before ideology. All of those things, survival came first. And everything that we built in civilization kind of sprung out on top of that. Human intelligence involved. We developed pattern recognition. We tool use, social cooperation, coordination, and planning. All of those. They were adaptive advantages, driven by pressure of survival. And every major shift in human civilization has always followed survival driven change. We look at examples like fire, architecture, agriculture, writing, industrialization. Each new tool changed how we human beings organized ourselves. No, the shifts were never painless. They distributed labor for the large part. They reshaped social roles. We had new jobs, we had new titles, we had new roles, and they basically forced adaptation. Is either we adapted or we go extinct. And the thing is that they were not optional. Evolution does not respond to comfort. It responds to pressure. And when societies fail to adapt to new conditions, they go extinct. Collapse of that society follows. That's usually what happens. But today, our survival pressures are no longer primarily physical like back then. They are systemic, they are abstract. For example, economic systems. We have some major economic issues that we need to deal with. Information systems, infrastructure, global interdependence. So, even though the types of threats that we have faced as a human civilization have changed, from the beginning till now, it has always been about survival. Um, I know that's hard to grasp. So, everybody usually asks, some form of question. What happens if I lose my job? Where are we going to live if I get sick? What if my insurance doesn't cover my claims? What if I'm in an accident? What if the economy crashes? What if someone breaks into my home? What if right now we have something going on in certain parts of our community? What happens if their birth rates continue to decline? There's a real fear out there for some people that they're being replaced, that they will no longer have the majority. They will What happens in a natural disaster? We have the other side going, what happens when climate change gets worse? How are we going to survive as humanity? So throughout our history, you know, everything we do, everything we built was always in some form or fashion a way for us to survive collectively as a society, and as a human civilization, whether it's the modern world or what used to be the third world. Hint that no longer exists, because the metrics we use show that all societies around the world are typically moving in the same direction. We've known that there hasn't been a third world for like 50 years, but that's neither here nor there. All of human civilization is built around survival in one way or another. It's our primary driving force. It's why people want to go to Mars and start a new civilization. Because if Earth gets bad, what's going to happen to humanity? What happens if there's a disaster and Earth becomes unlivable? We have people worrying about things like that. It's all stemmed from survival. But even throughout our history, every once in a while, a technology comes along that pushes human civilization forward, not through the gradual progression that we've seen, but in mega giant leaps. For example, the fire, the wheel, agriculture. These were not incremental improvements. They fundamentally changed how we lived, organized, and survived. Now, the reason I mention that is because today AI is very much like the fire wheel in agriculture, in that it represents a massive leap forward for human civilization. It is applying a new type of pressure, many of which we're already concerned about. If you recall, the first video was about what happens if AI replaces my job. And we talked about it was not actually AI itself, but organization. But here's the thing, it also creates a new opportunity because of the nature of it. For the first time in human history, we have the potential to move beyond operating purely on survival. Excuse me. Sorry about that. And we have the opportunity to move away from survival and begin operating from a position of collective good for our entire species. But that only comes if AI is used properly, as if it's treated as an opportunity, and not just some other automation tool, or powerful search and retrieval thing for profit, which seems to be how everybody's going with it. It opens the door for something entirely new. We have the opportunity to create a type of economy that literally has never existed before. It's one where basic needs are met. All of us, housing, food, shelter, all of it, where our basic needs are met, and where success and the levels of success beyond that basic level are based on participation and contribution into our society, where informed decision making is supported by AI systems that help reduce the negative biases that we all carry in one way or another. Because when you're driven by survival, success largely depends upon the expense of others. It's not a flaw in technology; it's just our nature. Because when we succeed, it's usually because someone else fails. So it is in our nature, and I wouldn't start by trying to change how humans think, but I can start by changing how we are informed. That, I think, to me, is a worthy goal. So, and with that in mind, I chose to build a framework with a fundamentally different approach, and it's an ontology first approach, which I think will be an interesting venture in or interesting conversation, or a little interesting venture to dive down. But that is for part three, when I talk about the actual framework and how I built it, and why I say it's ontology first as opposed to systematically first, like everybody else is doing. So, see you guys in the next video.